Welcome back. I'm sitting here with Natasha, and we had another fantastic conversation. We sat down with Stephanie Vedder, and she's a client success coach. And the company she works for is More Business, More Life. And she dives into all the things that she does. But it's always incredible when we're sitting across from someone and doing these podcasts and we see the aha moments. I absolutely loved it.
Yes, we watched it. We've been told a time or two that when we have people share their story, that it's kind of therapeutic, but there's a part, and I think we actually call it out in the podcast so people will know, but watching someone's face have a realization of something that's just like stirred up something deep inside of them, I think was fantastic. It was the best part.
Yeah, and she took us on a great journey of where she began, where she's at, and then where she sees her future, and just some great advice. So I'm really looking forward to the listeners getting a chance to hear Stephanie's story. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Tell Us Your Story.
Welcome to Tell Us Your Story. Join us as we step into the arena with business owners, leaders, and influencers. Hear their stories as they navigate challenges, opportunities, and victories on their journey to success. As Theodore Roosevelt once said, it is not the critic who counts, but the man or woman who is actually in the arena.
I was born and raised in the Bay Area mostly. I didn't travel too far from there, and for the reason that my whole family was there. So my grandparents, my aunts, my sister, everybody just kind of stayed. We're a very tight-knit family, so that's where I stayed, and it was, late 70s, 80s, so I'm the Gen X, so I just grew up the way that most did, the way that we all
Best
brag
generation.
about. Yeah. Drinking out of the hose, screen doors. Mom would just kick you out on the weekends and you knew it was time to come home when the lights went on. And it was, that kind of experience. So yeah, that's how I.
And how many kids? Mom and Dad stayed married. How many kids?
They actually also rare. They met in kindergarten.
Oh, wow.
Dad talks about how in second grade he knew that he was going to marry my mom. And then she made the first move. She asked him to Sadie Hawkins, and then the rest is his history on that. So I'm the oldest, and then I have a younger sister, so a year and a half younger, and then a brother.
Wow, sounds like a fantastic family community growing up.
Yeah, very blessed in that way.
And then tell us a little bit about how you were in school, through let's say middle school and then going into high school. Were you a good student, bad student?
What were your
Both.
hobbies, maybe?
Yes, the answer is yes. I was really competitive in school early on. I think middle school and that. I really loved to learn. I loved to find the other person in the class who was trying to finish first, or, was just a really good student. And then I think in high school, things changed a little bit, just a little bit. And I think that has everything to do with the people you choose to surround yourself with, which is something that was a great lesson for me early on. And I'm much more wise about who I choose to spend my time with now. But through high school, I think it came from a place of not knowing what I wanted and being surrounded by people who seemed so sure in high school of the direction they were going. And I was I don't know what I want to do. I like to have fun. I like my friends. And so I wasn't super motivated once I got to high school. So because of that, naturally went into the restaurant business and sort of worked my way up there and went to school and was just always trying to figure out what was going to click for me. And I floundered quite a bit actually at that point.
And so as you were going through high school, it sounds like you weren't confident in where you wanted to go, but was college in your future? Were you thinking college and had a destination or a dream?
I was thinking about it, was thinking about what I wanted to do. And it was interesting. My parents never really pushed school. They never really had me focus on the SATs or where do you want to go or we're going to pay for it and much of that. And so there wasn't a lot of drive on that side. And so I had a little bit of it within me, but I kind of let the chips fall where they may. I did end up doing junior college, doing a couple of things, and it just never really was fulfilling because I didn't have that goal. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Ultimately, I did go back to college once I found marketing because I fell in love with marketing and sales and business and all of that eventually. So I ended up going back when I had a full-time job and started doing that. But yeah, it took me a long time to figure out where I wanted to go.
And so, as you're talking about high school, were you having more fun than you should have been having? It sounds like there's some stories there.
This is the route we're gonna go down.
I was like, who's gonna pry here?
Yes, definitely having more fun than I should have been having. And at that time, I think a lot of rules were made at our high school because of our generation.
Oh, it's your fault.
Yeah.
It's ruined it for the rest of us.
Totally. Like there used to be an off-campus policy, and so we could go, I was a sophomore. When I was a sophomore, my friends were more seniors, and so they had the cars, and so we would go have lunch off campus and sometimes not come back.
Yes.
And then they didn't communicate to the parents. My mom was like, I remember getting a call or a letter that was like, your child has missed 19 classes. And it was like, 19? Why didn't you call me after one? She still was like, what? So I feel like there was a lot of gaps in the system that allowed me to not make the best decisions for myself.
Yeah, I'll just tell you a story, Natasha, so you
Please.
can. It's because we're the same generation.
Oh, okay.
So, middle school, early high school, the report cards or quarterly check-ins would come in the mail.
Yes.
Oh.
So we could get home before the report cards and then say, I have no idea. They must not have mailed it.
Right.
And we could go a whole semester and get away with bad grades. And,
Yes.
and then,
fix them.
yes.
Or blame
Oh
the
my
post
goodness.
office. And then also at that time too, because they were written, it was like a carbon copy thing, almost
Yeah.
like the old Knuckle Buster credit cards where there was a thing. So you could amend your own report card if, I don't know.
Oh,
There's
wow.
some good stories
I was
in
just,
here.
there's like, people can't see her. There's some connection happening here of like, oh, I know, I did that too.
Yes.
And I think, people go through that. I guess looking back now, so more often than not, the guests that we have, they say, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. You were
Sure.
lucky if you're like, this is what I want to do. And also luckier if that actually panned out.
That's what
So-
transpired, right? I hear
Looking-
that a lot too. Like you go to school
Yeah.
for this thing and you're so gung ho, and then you get into the workplace and you're doing it and you're like, I hate this. So
Yeah, that's what I was
yeah.
going to ask. Is looking back,
Yeah.
while you are floundering in the moment,
Yes.
some of that as you look back is just, I was learning. It was,
Right.
it sent you down a different way. I can imagine that you might see some good in that as you look back.
Now, yes,
Yes.
now I can see that. And the time I think I was very self-conscious because I was struggling in high school, and rightfully so. You have to show up to class to do well. And so I would get behind, and then I would just go, well, this is not for me. And it took me a lot longer to progress in that way. And it is part of my journey. I mean, I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't go through all the things that I went through. And so I've learned a lot through the floundering about what I want and what I don't want. But in the moment, you're very self-conscious. And I think I carried a lot of that self-consciousness, even a little bit maybe left today, because it's like, oh, I didn't get the 4-year degree. Like I didn't do things in the right way, whatever that is. But I did a semester abroad in Italy. I, had a chance to work with some amazing people. Once I did finally find what I love, I was mentored by some phenomenal people that I just feel so blessed to have had in my life. And looking back, it's like, I don't know. I mean, you could write your story in any way, and there's some degree of control that you have, but a lot of it is what happens for us. I guess I'll say it's not what happens to us. It's like what happens for us. And so, yeah.
So, I'm gonna probably fast forward and then come back. So, married with children?
Yes.
Are you married with children?
I
So
am.
tell us a little bit about your family, and then I have a question bringing it back.
Sure. So my husband, it's interesting. I may have followed my parents a little bit. We met in high school, and then we had a little puppy love thing going on in high school, but I was young and just wanted to be free. He was a little older. And so we just stayed friends. We had a core group of friends, and we're still all friends to this day. We did a road trip all together, flew into Chicago, rented an RV, did a whole baseball tour across the East Coast, and had a
Wow.
good time. And then when I came home, I was like, oh, for one, it's quiet, and I missed him. And so we started dating after that. That was, about 20-ish years ago. And then we got married 14 years ago. So, and now we have 2 kids, Danny, who will be 12 tomorrow, and Connor is 8.
Oh, what a great
Yeah,
story.
Very cool.
which brings me to the question about your kids and you going through high school. So we have a very similar background or experience. When I think about high school, I was the same way. I would leave at lunch, we'd all go to Taco Bell, never come back.
The beach. We were right over the mountain, 20 minutes from the beach, and that was very tempting all the time.
So how do you think, as your kids are going through high school, do you think you will allow them to have some of that floundering, or will you be more focused on creating a target?
This is not the question that keeps me up at night, and I don't know what it is. I do think about that, and it is hard because I see sometimes that I do that even with my daughter now as she's pushing limits and testing boundaries and trying to find out who she is and what's important to her. There's that balance of trying to give them that freedom to figure it out, and also going, man, I can see what's happening right now, and trying to protect them from that. So I do think that already she tries to push things past me, and she's a horrible liar. She'll even say, like, she'll look at me and she'll try to tell me something, and I'll ask a question, and then you see her like start to sweat, and she's like, I can't, Mom, I can't. I'm like, because I've done it. I snuck out. Like I've done it. I've done all the things. Like, you are not going to get away with it. So I think where maybe my parents' generation was a little more pure, they didn't suspect that I was being so naughty. But with my kids, yeah, I think I'm going to try to hopefully bring some balance to that, where I'm protecting them, but also letting them explore.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So I'm on the other side. So my kids are 31, 27, and 23. And I found that each of them was different. One of them, I had to give them that, like, figure it out, and give them that room. And the other, I was like, I need to give him a destination or her destination. So you'll get to experience and have fun with all of that.
I like how you switched up there so that you don't know what kid you're
That's
talking.
right. Good call.
I watched you. I was like, oh, I was thinking who, and then you switched it up. So interesting. Well played.
Yeah, they listen.
Sorry, now I called you out. You could edit it if you want.
I am definitely curious to have, if you have any advice for me on that. So can you expand upon what you just said of one, I had to give them a target, and one, and like, how stressful was that? Like, how hard is it to not put your stuff like on them?
Yeah. So one, I absolutely put my stuff on them.
Okay.
So when they would, especially the older one, because it was the first, right? So when they say, hey, I'm spending the night at somebody's house, I had to speak with the parents, because when we were growing up, that's not where I was by any means. And then with my youngest one, he needed more room to be able to whatever, flounder a little bit, but he always ended up on the right track. And then my other two, it was more of like, hey, let's look at a goal, let's look at a destination, and work on this together. So it was just really, it's more of a personality. And as a parent, it's hard because you want to tell them exactly and help them, not necessarily tell them, but you have to figure out the personality like anybody else. So that's the challenge of figuring out, like, their little yous, and you're like, are you gonna do the same thing I did? And what part of me did you get? And what part of my wife did you get?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like guiding them, I guess, depending on how they operate. And I do hope and feel that a lot of the training that I've now had, like as a coach, that I can bring that in. And I think it's about asking questions. And so I've noticed that when I try to tell or demand something, that doesn't always go well. But if I can like bring it back, get in rapport, ask questions, use their words to understand, then things go much better. Like, I was trying to talk to my daughter about screen time, and they've never been excessive with it, but there wasn't a lot of, I guess, knowingness around when was it okay and how much time can I spend and all of that. And so I kind of went and sat down and was like, okay, so let's talk about screen time, and what do you feel like is appropriate? Because I also can see that, like, okay, if you're in the middle of something and I'm trying to get your attention and talk to you and you're not hearing me and I'm telling you to get off of it, that's not going well. So let's talk about it before it gets to that. What do you think is appropriate for how much time and how often? And I'll tell you if I agree. And so then it became her choice, her rules. And she's like, well, I'd really like to have it when I get home and I'm doing snack time for like 20 minutes. And then I think after I finish my homework, if I could maybe have like another half an hour before dinner, that would be great. And I was like, wonderful. So do you think if we use some timers, and so that could be the bad cop, then that is what we could do. And so that way I know not to interrupt you when you're on it, because I know when it's going to end. And she was like, yeah, I think that works out great. And I was like, okay, great. And so I was like, oh, Yes.
The things that transfer over from personal life to business and coaching, using the same tactics, which is fascinating. So if I can ask, when did you, so you felt like you were floundering, you said you're working in the restaurant service industry and you kind of found that you loved marketing. So when did that happen and how did you fall in love with it?
Right. So I guess I started in my teens, like in high school. I started as like a busser at the restaurant, worked my way up. I think that everybody should work in a restaurant for some period of time. Like it's invaluable what you learn about people and ethic and hard work and all that stuff. And after I was like 21 and I had done some college and I was trying to figure things out, there was like an opportunity to go abroad. And so I did like a semester abroad. That's also something that I highly recommend that everybody do. But then when I came back...
Real quick question on that. Did you go with anybody? So did you go with people you knew?
I went with, 2 girls that I knew.
Okay. Because it's such a big, like going abroad at 21 or 20, that's a really big undertaking.
Yeah.
Right. I almost, looking back, yes, it was what it was supposed to be. I almost feel like I wish I would have gone not knowing anybody, because then you're kind of in your bubble and maybe you don't branch out as much. But it was amazing. Like
awesome.
Just traveling and being out there. It's like a whole nother world. You know?
And sorry, I took you off track.
It's okay. No, it's okay. Yeah. What were we talking about? Okay. So I did that. So when I came back, I was like, I don't want to go back to nights and weekends and all of that. I need to figure out, I need to like get serious. Like, what am I going to do? And so a friend of mine had an admin job at her company and I went there and was just doing paper pushing and that sort of thing. And then there was like a sales position that opened up and for like novelty products and wholesale roller skates, and I love roller skates. So I did that for a long time. That opened me up to like expos and selling internationally and all kinds of stuff on the phone. But I really hated like just being in an office from 9 to 5. I was like constantly looking at the clock. Like, when is this going to be? When do I get to punch out? And then a good friend of mine who we worked there together, she left and she went and worked for the Penny Saver. I don't know if you guys are familiar
I know
with the Penny Saver. Yes. And way more popular up here than it was down in the Bay Area, but I loved it. Like instantly fell in love with I would start my day in the office and end it in the office, but in between I was out, I was talking to business owners, I was, strategizing on like how to help them get new customers, building ads. Like this was all by paper and cut and paste. And it was like, just super fun, and going back to visit them every week and just building that relationship and hearing them say, I got 7 new customers that I'd never seen before in my business, and them just valuing me. It was like actually, it's interesting. One of the first times that I really felt valued, like somebody was excited to see me. They cared what I had to say. They trusted me. And because I just felt like I was a mess for so long, that maybe I was addicted to that part of it. Like,
and did you know at the time you were going through a transformation? Like, when you were
not until this moment, right?
I felt like I saw it in your face, so I wrote it down because it's so true, and it's one of the things is we've coached a lot of people, and also in just our own personal like career journeys is there is a difference when you feel valued by other people and value in what you're doing. It's a complete game changer. So I loved just watching that happen right in front of me.
Like, you're like,
I
was like, wait, that's maybe why I loved it. I thought it was like, just the fun and the carefree part, but it was for sure. That was a big piece of it. And then at the time there was just a fledgling team of like 6 girls, and we were at the bottom of the leaderboard, and we didn't have a manager. So the VP had sort of taken us under his wing, and we just grew like a friendship, and he used to just answer all my questions. He would take meetings with me. He just decided to mentor me. And so he taught me a lot about just integrity, professionalism, like how to set goals and how to settle for nothing less than excellence. Just go out there, make mistakes, whatever it was. And it was, our teams really came together in that time, and we like moved our way up the leaderboard. Like in 6 months we had, I don't know, like 5 times the revenue for our team. So I just had this great experience like right away of, finding something I really liked, something I was good at, and then being able to be mentored and then have that whole team success story. I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. And so then that just progressed from there into digital marketing, started building websites, and that was a whole journey in itself. But.
And you said that I think you said that you decided to go back to school for this. So is that did you decide there's some things I need to get serious and learn about here, or what was that decision like?
I think that was always held over my head, maybe even just by myself, of that I didn't have that certificate. I didn't have that degree. And so I felt like, for one, I wanted that accomplishment. And then I also wanted to learn more about this industry that I was just kind of learning on the streets, literally. So I would work 40 or 50 hours a week. And then 3 nights a week I went back to DeVry, and I was taking classes like business classes, sales marketing classes, project management, some of that stuff. Just to learn more about that.
So 2 things that I love in there. So one, I want to just touch on your mentor, because when we started this podcast, it's a lot of what we talked about is just leadership and mentorship and the impact others have on us. So have you taken that lesson? Well, 2 questions. One, again, during that time, did you know how great it was to have a mentor like that? And then 2, have you passed that on? Are you now a mentor in the same way? And did it have a lasting impact?
It definitely did. I appreciated having that guidance. I wasn't afraid to go ask questions. So that definitely taught me, like, and my dad always said that, like, don't be afraid to be the kid in class, like raising your hand when you're like, I don't get it. And so I was able to do that. I think in the moment I didn't appreciate it, but it didn't take long for me to feel like, okay, this has really been helpful to have somebody so I just didn't have to figure it all out on my own all the time. And certainly there's always some element of that where you have to figure it out, but that was huge. And then after that, I definitely became the mentor in that sales office. It was like a sales office of like 30 reps at the time, and people would come to me for stuff, for questions, for ride-alongs, whatever it was, and then ultimately led me. The sales managers were always so impressive to me. Like, they were always held so high, and I was like, I want to be a sales manager. And then I eventually had that in my career, and I just loved being able to teach people what I had learned, and then see them like have their eyes open, or see them try something different that I had suggested and have a great result. That was sort of addicting.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite parts about mentorship is that one individual. And do you remember his name?
His name was Howard Young.
So Howard Young. So the impact that he had, you were just one person that he was mentoring, but then you pass that on to however many, and it just gets passed on. And you can look at it on the flip side, and we've all had bad leaders in our careers where we're like, if you only just knew how the impact that you have, positive or negative, across
both,
so many different people. And then you talk about your education, and we have had a lot of guests on, and we have some guests that are very well educated. We have some that have high school degrees and they're multimillionaires. And, as we go through the conversations, everyone views it a little bit different. I didn't finish mine. And there's times where I was in meetings and I had the imposter syndrome. I'm sitting in a room where I'm sitting at dinner and people are talking about, what school they went to or what alumni they're part of. And I was like, oh, well, I'm a United States Marine, but I'm still just as successful. So how much of that was just weighing on you when you were going into different situations? Was it a big weight for you?
It definitely was. There was a period where I took a little hiatus from marketing. I was like, is this what I want to do? And I went and tried something else. And I was working for like a technical project management firm. And so going to lunch with those folks and having them all exactly the same thing, talk about their school and their experience. And I mean, they talked about it a lot. And I was like, what? Is this all we're talking about? I always, I was just quiet. And so for sure that imposter syndrome. And now, with a little more age and experience, you start to realize, yes, certainly that is important, and it's important to them, and I'm so happy for them, but that shouldn't make me feel less than.
Yeah. And I think from my perspective, that's always been to my message, to make sure all 3 of my children went through and they have their degrees now. And I also told them, when you're sitting in a room with people, just because you have a degree doesn't make you any better than this person across from you. And better remember, mom and dad didn't have one, and they can compete with you on any level. So awesome that you have it, but make sure that it's an even playing field where you can.
Right. So important. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And the experience too. I mean, things like studying abroad and trying different work. I think, I have my degree, but I would say much more of where I found my success is that real life experience. Right. So it's 100% a balance. And I think as long as people keep that in mind, there's good to be taken from both sides.
Yeah. We all have something to offer, and it's really just how we show up and what we do with our time. And we all choose a little different path, but.
Yeah. And I've been in those meetings where we're looking at candidates over the years, and the degree will come up, and I've had this conversation with multiple people, and I've said, let's go through the interview process. A lot of times what you don't know is that person without that degree has a chip on their shoulder, or they have the imposter syndrome. They're going to work 20 hours more a week. And not saying that's the only factor, but sometimes that is a driver.
Right.
And you're like, oh my gosh, this individual in this spot is excelling, even though if you look at the resume, you'd be like, not a good fit.
Right.
So looking at it holistically and saying, who is this person?
Right. They have that drive and that like something to prove almost.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of went down one of those rabbit holes.
That's okay.
So you went back to school and then what happened with your career?
So I did that for about a year and a half, and then I sort of burnt out on that. So I didn't actually finish that, but I did start to, like, digital marketing was just coming online. Like, websites were coming online. Google was primarily the main thing that you could sell, or like that was the way you could market yourself digitally. And then social media came up and people were like, what do we do with this? And so I kind of saw all of that and was just working with businesses to help them figure all of that out. So I did that, and then it evolved into, I started working with a different agency and was there for about 10 years and started doing a little bit of everything. It was like social media marketing, it was email marketing, it was video content and production, like actually going to shoot my clients' customers because I knew the importance of video, and even doing social influencer campaigns. Like the biggest one we did, we worked with Brooke Shields. I didn't get to work with her personally, but my agency worked with her agency, and so we did a whole thing. So I did a lot of things in that space, and a couple years in, I had taken everything that I had learned at Penny Saver, and I was having some success, but the mindset that I had was take all the clients, like work with all the clients, work with whoever you can, and just hustle and grind. And it doesn't matter how much time you put in, or if they value you, or even if they're kind to you. Like if their revenue is there, you go for it. And so you can only work with so many people. You can only do so much and earn so much when you're doing that, because it just soul sucking in one way, and it takes up your time. Like it's also a big time suck. And so I had, I was able to have a lot of success at Penny Saver, and then moved into the digital space, and I had kind of reached a plateau. And then I had, through my networking group, I went to an event, just a workshop thing. And that's where I met my current mentor, who is Steve Napolitan. And I heard him speak, and he was talking about wow clients. That's his like signature workshop that he does, or his like masterclass. And he had us do an exercise, and it was like, pick one of your favorite clients. He calls them wow clients. So your wow client is like your target market, your ideal client, your avatar, but like one level up. Like who is that person, but like you love them. You love working with them. They fill you up, they give you energy, they spend appropriately, they refer business. Like, just if you can make your whole business this one client, like cloned, how amazing would your life be? So he kind of brought that awareness to me, and I was like, man, I have wowish client. And I was like, everybody else was like, ow. Not wow, it was super ow. And so I was like, okay. So I started to make some shifts in my business, and certainly didn't go fire everybody right away, but started gravitating and really choosing my clients, and then, just adding in all of his different techniques, and was able to quadruple my business while also like not adding work hours to my day. And at the time I was like a young mommy. My kids were really, I think I may have even been pregnant when I went to the first one with Connor, and I went to his workshop, and then we worked together for years, and he helped me get to like over 1 million. And I worked for an agency, but I really treated it like my own business, because I was in charge of business development. So I had to go find the clients, and then the marketing strategy. So I had to put together the strategy, and then we had a team to execute on it. So before this, I interned, and I know how to do all the things and push all the buttons and like run all the campaigns, but which was helpful then to oversee the team that was doing that. So then I had to keep the clients, run all the meetings, handle the billing, all of that. So I really took ownership and like treated it like my own. And then I started getting noticed in the company. Like I had won the President's Club and all the different things, and they asked me to go into management, and I was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. Even though I had this great business and this great life, and I was walking my kids to school and volunteering in class and doing all the things that I wanted to do, I had designed my life, that's our thing, like design the life that you want and build the business around that. Because so many entrepreneurs, they design the business that they want and then they try to fit in the life, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So I went into management and I was doing it for about a year, and I thought I could affect change from the inside out. We were very much in that company culture of like run all the presentations, like do 10 presentations, make 100 cold calls, and if you get 10% closing ratio, then you're good. But it was like, that didn't feel good and it didn't work for me. And so using Steve's techniques, I had like an 86% closing ratio. So I could get into less situations, but I was really good at identifying like who I wanted to work with and who was appropriate to be working with me. Like who could I really help the best? So I had these filters that I hadn't had before. So I was trying to teach my team how to have all that. But corporate was like very much having me try to manage to like a very old school way of thinking in sales. And so I wasn't happy doing it because I was coaching to strategies that I knew didn't work and I would never do myself.
And then I have a question.
Yeah.
Was there? So
Yeah, go ahead.
So aside from the corporate piece of it, leading people and mentoring people, was that a hard transition for you into the leadership role when you look back?
It wasn't hard in that I really enjoyed teaching and like paying it forward and that whole piece of it. What was challenging was like then, and maybe because my team, I was peers with them and then switched into that leadership role. So that is tricky because you go from being one of them to then telling them what to do. So that, it was easy in some ways and it was hard in other ways because I was trying to figure out how to like be that role of both, like not friend, but friendly, like be the boss, but also really wanting to just teach.
Yeah, it can be an incredibly difficult transition, and you're going from something you love and you're learning a whole new skill set, set of skills.
Yes.
So
totally.
As you're going down that path, is there any time that you're thinking, why am I not just doing this on my own?
Yes. Every day.
I don't like how they're having me do it. It sounds like you had a way from what you were learning outside was a better method. Did you feel kind of pushed to go that way?
I felt like I was, trying to teach them to do the things that I did to have such great results. Like they were all struggling to get to even half of what I had, and I had found a way to do it with ease. And so I was trying to, sell that to corporate. Like you brought me into this position because they kind of left me alone to do it my way because I got results. But yet they were wanting me to teach to their way, which, worked for some people, but so many people were getting burnt out. There was turnover, all that stuff. And I was like, okay. So I was in this like internal battle of like trying to teach my team and they were loving it and trying new things and we were doing well. And then corporate was like, okay, but you're not like all up in their Salesforce asking them why they didn't do this, that, and the other. And I was like, well, okay. So it was definitely a weird struggle. And also I didn't have any time that was my own. It was, my calendar was now open to everybody. They could just go in and book an appointment. So if there was a sliver of white space, somebody would take that time. And so after 8 hours of Zoom calls and helping everybody else, like talk about just energy depletion, like you're just giving to everybody else, which I did. I wanted to help, but I was so depleted at the end of the day. And then after the work day ended, I would have to answer all the emails and do all the follow-up and do all the things. So I was working way more and actually making less. And that is for the birds. So
yeah. And so what's your progression to where you're at now? So walk us through that.
So after about a year, and I was working with Steve at the time and he was trying to help me through all of it, but was ultimately asking me like, what do you actually want your life to be? And I was like, well, not this. But I didn't know, like I didn't have the guts to leave, make a change. I didn't know how. I just felt loyal to the team, to the company. I did like the people I was working with, but it was like that whole golden handcuffs thing, right? Like I am the breadwinner in my family, and I was like, I can't just like leave without a plan B. And then one day, like something bad happened, which was like mass layoffs. And most people think it's a bad thing to get laid off. And it certainly was scary, but for me, it was the best thing. It was like a blessing. And that's what I was asking for inside. I was like, oh, this is, really hard because, and I may have said that, but my daughter would like, she was 5 at the time. She would like write her name into my schedule at the end of my little agenda. I would like leave it on my desk every night. And then I would come in the next morning and at the very bottom, there'd be like 8 p.m., like read me a book or like,
It's heartbreaking.
tuck me in. Like the mom guilt was, and I wish I could say that that only happened once. I did miss like tucking her in more times than I would like to admit, but I didn't know how to leave. And then basically I like to say that things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And at the time, Steve was coming off of a health sabbatical and knew that like he couldn't do it alone anymore. He wanted to grow a team. And so he chose like 3 of his clients, people who had been clients. So people who had been students, case studies, like done the work, had the results to come on and then now coach. So I sort of went from student to coach. So now I just am teaching other CEO founders and entrepreneurs like how to have that.
Wow. So when that opportunity happened, was it excitement? 'Cause you're switching fields again, right?
Right. Yes. So, after 20 years of marketing. Yeah. Crazy.
So, but it was with excitement that you were going into that? A little bit scared maybe?
But yes, all the things. It was both. I was blessed that when they let me go, I was able to get a severance, which was nice. And then when I came on, I just used some of the same business development techniques that I had known, and I got a private client. So that's like our highest offering, like in the first month. And I was like, okay, this is a sign that this is what I'm supposed to do. So it was scary. And I was like, oh God, who am I to go? And it's that same thing, that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Like, who am I to go coach and tell other, successful CEO founders what to do with their business? But I knew the systems, like I knew the areas where we could help. And a big piece of what we do is like mindset work. Like we're all trained in certain techniques of like psychology, not techniques, modalities of psychology. And so we can really help our clients get through a lot of different stuff. And it's just, I think it's probably taken the last couple of years to really even fully step into that role and be like, no, I'm a coach now. But we've had some great success stories with my clients and still working on that. But
what a fantastic model too, because you used like the methodologies and the things and they worked, which is funny because we still go into these, this mindset of, who am I? And you're like, wait, this is why I'm here. So
I did that.
it's a whole circle. So what would you say as far as kind of your target, client, the CEOs that you're talking about working with, like who are the ones that are, reaching out to you or are a good fit for, kind of what you coach to?
It's a great question. So my WOW client it's not industry specific. In fact, the systems that we teach are foundational. We haven't really found like an industry where it hasn't worked. So it's typically more of like the CEO founder or entrepreneur, and they're typically between $1 million and like 50 million even in revenue. So they've had some success. So they've been able to build the business. And a lot of times you get to $1 million organically and then you're like, oh gosh, like how do I grow and scale from here without hurting myself? Or, they need that support in a different way than somebody who's just launching does. And then they have resources to pay for coaching. Like they're more willing to invest in their business because they're like, okay, I've done this. I have a business and this is what I want to do. And I'm willing to invest to pay it forward. So they found some success, but they don't have like the life piece that they want. It's that, they're trying to fit their life in around their business and they really want to flip that and they really want to learn. So we found that our clients are ones that are either going to events or they're willing to invest in learning in some way. We can't help everybody. They have to be like open and willing to learn. They have to want something different, like have a dream or desire for more, and they have to be willing to be guided. So it's typically that. And then for me specifically, really love working with moms, like the mompreneur who's managing the household, like trying to be everything to everyone at home, but then also has this ambition to have a business that will feed her family without having to sacrifice that time with her family.
And I would imagine a lot of that comes from your experience of what you went through and what you spoke to. And I would imagine they can relate to you. You're able to relate to their situation and experience.
Yeah, I get it.
And when you're going through with the coaching and you bring on a new client, I think part of the challenge of where we're at in the time of our life is that people want results, right? TikTok is 30 seconds.
Right.
There used to be 7-minute abs, and everything is fast. But in the reality,
Right.
If you look at any process, if you go to I always like to use this analogy. If you go to the gym today, you're not going to see any results. And if you go in 1 week, you're probably not going to see any results.
Right.
But if you look back at 90 days, you're going to see incredible results if you were consistent.
Yes.
So when you're working with these clients, what are the expectations when they come in, and how do you level set that with them? Or do they have an basic understanding? This is going to take some time.
I think that they don't know what to expect usually. And there's coaches out there that have like, okay, you're coming into the program. Here's your binder. We're going to go A to Z in this order. Here's what we're going to do. We don't really do it like that. There's either a time issue or like a money issue. Like, do we need to grow revenue or do we need to find time for our life? And so we kind of take them down one of two paths and plug them in where needed. And we do ask for 90 days, like, okay, change, to your point, change. And we use analogies like that all the time. And it's funny, a lot of times when I do my like infomercial, I'll say, it's not a quick pill, it's not a magic bullet, it's not 7-minute abs, because it's not. You can't have unrealistic expectations. It didn't take you a month to get here. It's not going to take you a month to get to your next step. And so certainly at 90 days, we see some major transformation. We start to break down some walls, and then at 6 months, and then after a year, like people are night and day difference. It is visible, like even just the way that they look, like the smile on their face, the energy, the ease. Like I just see people come in like so wound up and they're like, and they want results like immediately, but they are willing to wait and like put in the work. And it's a team effort. Like it's not just me. We like to say we're like that guy on the tarmac, for the airplanes with the like, go this way, go that way, go that way. But you still have to fly the plane. Like you still have to do the work. So that's sort of, I think, the expectation we set with people. Like if you have that dream or desire for more, if you're willing to take action, and if you're willing to let us guide you, then you will have success, and you could be in a totally different place in your business in 90 days, or at least on that path. So sometimes it takes that time to figure out like, okay, well, what do I want? What is the path? We have to step back and pause to work on the business to figure out like how to at least, like some people don't even know. They're just so busy, like running the treadmill. They got it up to a 10 and they're just running. Like they can't step off because they'll hurt themselves or they'll hurt the company. So they're just going, and they don't pause and figure out, well, what do I actually want? It was like Steve asked me, like, what do you actually want your life to be? We have to take a few steps back first before we run forward.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't think people always understand that 90 days and 12 months are both incredibly short and incredibly long at the same time. You can be in a completely different place. You can be a completely different life in 12 months, even 90 days.
Yes.
But it also goes by like
fast.
that.
Right.
So it's a fascinating as you think about it. It's like, I want to change my life. It's going to take a little bit of time, but in reality, it's not. Like 90 days and a year is not a long time.
It's nothing. And we're talking about literally changing your life. Like how important is that to you? So that has to be really important.
Yeah,
for
they
that
have
person.
to want. They have to want to change.
They have to want that, right? Yeah.
For long term, one of the I feel like it's like a theme lately. You at the panel last night, somebody spoke on this too. So the idea of a wow client, I think on the opposite side of that is knowing who's not your client. And earlier, you had said, as you were changing that, you weren't like looking to fire people, right away. And last night at this panel, like, I would fire clients, and like, that's okay too. So just there, that's something, kind of newer business owners, us being one of them, and others that I know, is a lot of like, you want to take who you can, like say yes to everybody. And then, you learn that that's not the way. So I guess for figuring out that it is okay to say, I'm not for you, or, maybe you're interviewing your clients just as much as they're interviewing you, but just any advice there on identifying who is not for you and how to kind of go about that.
That's such a great question. I think we could probably do a whole podcast just on that question, but it ends up being a mindset thing, I think. And so that's why we end up doing a lot of mindset work, because we make that advice, we were like, okay, this is, and people go, yes, that sounds great. And then they don't know how to do that because they're afraid. Well, if I don't take this client, then I'm not going to get this revenue. And then what's going to happen? But the reality is it's like a battery, like our energy. If you think about like a battery, like there's only so much room. So if you're filling up your whole business with clients that aren't for you, then there's no room to fit the other ones in. Like we have to let go of the people who we're not meant to work with to make space for the right people. Otherwise, that's when we end up working more hours, hurting ourselves, like taking the joy out of what we do. And so I think, I didn't go fire people, but it definitely put me in a different position where when I was talking with people, I had, I was more thorough. I had more filters on the front end. And also we have like feelings for a reason. Have you ever been with a client and you sit there and you're getting this little gut and you're like, I know that like they'll say yes if I offer them to partner with me, but you're like, there's little spidey senses that are going off and you're like, I actually don't want this client. We just have to listen to that. Like we have to trust our gut and know that it's okay to say, you know what? After everything you've said, after everything you've shared about me with your goals and what you would like I actually don't think that I'm the perfect fit for you, but maybe I know someone else. So it's really important to like make power partners and find other people, because just because someone's not wow for us doesn't mean they're bad people. They're just not our people. And so we have to be okay with like letting them go and then just sending them off in the best way that we can, giving them a resource, giving them a book, giving them a next step if we know it. It's okay to do that. And we have to do that. Like it's imperative that we let go of those people, because then if we don't, they're sitting in the seat of our wow client, the one who's going to really help us change our whole business and our life. So we have to be okay with that.
Yeah, I think it's so important. And Natasha and I have different generations. We're in a business together, and early in our careers, like, hey, this is a great customer for you, not for me. Even though we're in the same business, she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, my personality doesn't clash here. Like, it's just not going to work. But great for you. And now we're at a spot, she's like, hey, this is a great one for you, not for me.
Oh, yeah, right away. I'm like, I need you to step in here. I can already tell. But it took me a very long time. Yeah. And you still feel guilty and you still feel like, oh my gosh,
you help.
But I think some of those key points that you said is have, maybe someone else to refer to or another resource, something like that, kind of get you out of that situation. Yeah. Or get a partner that you can say, hey, talk to the big guy. So that's what I do.
Sometimes it is just personality. Sometimes it's like tangible things that you're like, oh, you want X and I have Y. And so sometimes it's really clear and sometimes it's not. And we just have to trust that, like, if it's okay, there's somebody else that's out there. We had a client who was trying to grow, like worked with us. And for them, it was like 18 months to like double their business. But they had 2 clients that equaled like $1 million in revenue a year, just the 2. But they were so painful. They were like mean to their staff. They took up all their time. Like they were awful. And when we went in, we, recommended that they had to find a way to either like reset the expectations with them. And if they were on board, great. And if not, then we'd have to let them go. And it took them a while to do it. But when they did that, they were a $4.5 million company. So that was, a good chunk of their business. But once they ultimately let go of those clients, like within 18 months, they had grown their business to $9 million in revenue. And then other, their employees were making more money, like they were taking more vacations, like all that stuff changed. So it's our own stuff that makes us feel like, oh God, I can't. Even if it's a $500,000 client, you got to let them go because it's holding you back from being. And now he's like a $12 million business and he's like never there. He's like in Italy or whatever. Like it's going.
That's awesome.
Different.
I love it. So a question on just coaching in general. So I was in the corporate world for 25 years and, I'm really on LinkedIn a lot and I follow a lot of coaches and it's very saturated and you get a spectrum of what's out there. Yes. So what sets you apart? Can you go into that a little bit and why someone wants to come to you?
Right. I think the beautiful thing about having a lot of coaches out there is that more people are willing to raise their hand and ask for help. Like it's become more of a norm that it's okay to seek out coaches. I know when I was in digital marketing, like my clients would get a dozen phone calls a day from other digital marketers. Like there are a lot of industries out there that are quite saturated. And really, I don't need to work with everybody on the planet. For me, it's like finding one new client a month that is my wow client. And then they want to work with me and I want to work with them. So In terms of like the setting apart, I think there's things that we do differently than other coaches. There's different experiences that we've had and different personalities and skill sets on our team and different things that we can do. I think the mindset piece is a big part that is different about what we do. And certainly maybe some coaches, there's a lot of coaches that do that as well. So I feel like this question is always a struggle to answer because everybody is different. Like I'm different than the person on my team, the counterpart. And to the same point, when someone comes in and maybe I'm the introduction, I'm like, oh, I really like them. But I actually, like my teammate Melissa, her skill set is way more compatible with this person. And so they still come in, they get a great experience. So I think it's just about, I don't know, meeting the people who have the need, who have the desire, who want the change, and then they're a good fit for me. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there's so many industries that are saturated, and it's really just, I don't need all the clients. I just need my perfect wow clients.
So from an outside perspective, I can, listening to the conversation, one thing that there's a few things, but I'll mention one or two that stand out when I think about what you've said versus what I see from other coaches. So one is a set and proven process that you guys have done over the years. Like I don't see that a lot. I see a lot of words. I see a lot of feel goods.
Yes.
But I don't see a system that's been in place, and especially one
for
that
decades,
is proven. And then mindset, I think is so incredibly important. So from an outside perspective, I see a clear difference in what I'm seeing, which is really cool.
You could have started with that.
Like you could cut in there. And to add on to it, I think also having people, the more I respect people that are aware of, like, who you are best suited for and who you can help best and all of that. And there are a lot out there that are like, oh yeah, so, never talk to you, but sign up and I'll take your, it's different when people are like, no, we actually understand that this might not be a fit for you. I think it's such a huge piece in any industry, any business. We do a lot with consulting, in health insurance. It's like, there's thousands of agents.
Sure.
But you can find your one. And so I think that's, that's different.
And who do I want to invite? And you're right. I think there are a lot of people out there on LinkedIn who are like, work with me. And it's almost like they are so ready to offer you to partner with them before they even take that time. So we actually have like an application process that we have people go through to work with us because we want to see if they're coachable or if they, we want them to get to know us before they decide. And then it is a joint decision. We're not saying, it's not us trying to convince them to be our client. It is like very much, we both have to want that with certain expectations and I'm not for everyone.
Well, the time flies by so quick in these conversations. So a couple questions, staple questions we have. So my staple question, which I think you're perfect fit for this question. So
no pressure.
No pressure. Everybody defines success in a different way. How do you define success for you? Not your clients, for you. What does success look like?
Well, for me, family is at the core of it always. It's like doing what I want with the time that I have is success. Like when I want to be at work, when I want to be helping my clients, I'm with my clients. If I want to be traveling or, volunteering in class or on a field trip, I think it's choice. Like it's freedom. I mean, that is our trademark. It's like choose gratitude, create freedom. And so really it's that freedom to do with your time what you would like and then have abundance still come your way. So that for me is like everything.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Are you successful? Do you see yourself as successful?
I would say that I am successful. Yeah.
I love it.
Maybe not all the dollar. My bank account's not full. Like I can still accept deposits in my bank account.
Like still accepting clients,
but I think that is important. Like if you are grateful for what you have, then you have everything that you need, and there is freedom in that for sure.
Yeah, such an important lesson, especially for those coming up. It's not the bank account. It's everything. It's the family, from my perspective as well.
Yes.
So my staple question is, if you could talk to your 30-year-old self, knowing what you know now, being who you are today, what's one piece of advice you would tell yourself at 30?
Oh, that's such a good question. I have been asked this before. I feel like every time I say something different. I guess at that point I already had mentors, but I would tell myself that like you are valuable, what you have to say is important, and just to keep investing in yourself. Like keep investing in yourself, keep putting yourself out there, get outside your comfort zone, just don't give up.
That's such good advice.
Yeah.
It's fantastic advice. What is one thing that you would like to leave with the listeners?
I would say the thing that I say to my kids every day is be brave and be kind. I think go boldly in the direction of your desires and know that it's okay to make mistakes. And that's actually the most beautiful part of life and where we learn the most. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to just be you and don't ever apologize for that.
Oh, it was incredible. Great way to end the conversation. So I just want to say thank you for coming on. The conversation went really, really fast. It was an incredible story.
Yes.
It's really great, and thank you for sharing. I think it's important work that you do, and pouring into other people as well as yourself. So thank you for sharing some of that with us and with the people that you are.